No stress. This is so professional.
Hello, everyone. We're here. Shall we kick off?
Let's
So
go.
I
Yes, we
guess,
shall.
yeah. So I guess we should talk a bit about what two-player mode is. So Phylicia, who's a partner at Play Ventures, and I'm Simon, CEO at Mighty Bear Games, building goatgaming. We do a catch-up on games industry developments on Web3 specifically every couple of weeks. And this week we have Gabby with us. Why don't you introduce yourself, Gabby? I'm
Hey
sure everyone knows who
Simon.
you
Hey
are, but why don't
Felicia.
you go for it? Oh,
Yeah,
lost Phylicia.
I'll just say hi. Hey everyone. My name is Gabby Dizon, co-founder of Yield Guild Games or YGG. We're a guild protocol that invites players to come in, form groups, and play together, discovering their favorite Web3 games. I've been in the game industry for over 20 years and been in crypto and NFTs for the last six.
Thank you very much, Gabby. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, I mean, you and I have known each other from our Web2 days as well, so long way back. I'm just going to do a very quick overview of what Goat is for those of you joining in as well. So, Goat is essentially almost like the mini clip of Web3. So, a hub where you can play hundreds of instant games in Web3, all of them with prizes and with competition at their core, primarily on Telegram and browser as well. But yeah, we already launched 2 games. So Mighty Action Heroes is live. We are releasing another game this week for Go, and yeah, follow us to learn more about that. So yeah, let's I guess go over general news this week. So do you want to start, Phylicia, with the first story that we're going to chat about?
Sure. So we'll start with our good friends, or rather not maybe good friends, but good laughs over at Palworld. So the Palworld devs have now signed a deal with Sony. They're going to form a new entity called Palworld Entertainment, and the whole goal of it is to actually expand the Palworld IP, not necessarily publish the game itself, but expand it into merchandise, licensing, and I guess eventually maybe transmedia. It's kind of hilarious, I suppose, in case the folks listening don't know. Palworld launched, I think, was it last year or earlier this year? I can't remember. Time passes so
Earlier this
quickly,
year,
but
I think. Yeah.
earlier this year, right? Oh God,
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's last year. But anyway, it was launched as a survival crafting game. Had great success on PC and Xbox, and most controversially, obviously took inspiration from the Pokemon IP. I think it's super funny. Since the developer themselves, I mean, it's not funny that they received death threats, but obviously the IP itself is so controversial, and yet here you have another Japanese company saying, let's legitimize this and make merch out of it. So I can't help but wonder how the guys over at Pokemon feel about this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because the game itself, if you look at the charts on Steam, has actually dropped off a lot. So a lot of these like indie games have this big pop and everyone's playing, and so yeah, it kind of feels like. I mean, you said it feels like something that happened last year. So I think the timing is curious. Um, they must have big plans. I guess it's a chance for Sony to have their own attempt at Pokemon. But what do you think, Abby?
Yeah, I think it just underscores how hard it is to do like live service games, right? They clearly hit something there with a quote unquote Pokemon with guns kind of theme that a lot of people are probably been looking for but weren't able to scratch that itch. But without a lot of live service elements, then a lot of the content just falls off. And I think now with a partnership with a giant company, they'll be able to do a lot more in extending the IP.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Like, do you think they're gonna? I guess it could lend itself to Sony having their own Pokemon style anime, right?
They'll,
Is
I
that
do think that they'll try. It's very interesting to see that it's another Japanese company that has pulled this off. And I don't know the kind of rivalry and politics of these Japanese game companies, but it's super interesting to see what like how far they'll stretch the IP. Is it going to be focused on Japan or will it just go international from day one? Right?
yeah, it's a really good point. At
Perhaps
the
Sony knows something we don't know. Maybe they've got live ops plans up their sleeve. Because I mean, when it launched, it became the largest. I think it became the largest third party Game Pass launch.
hmm.
Had 15 million copies sold on Steam. did 25 million players a month, and did, from all accounts, a really nice profit for the studio involved. So I guess when you see something like that, it's really interesting.
Yeah,
Although
there's
I
definitely
would,
player demand there, right?
yeah, exactly. And maybe live ops is something they have up their sleeve. Maybe they feel like they can rejuvenate interest back into the game by doing something that's more transmedia, like anime, music, merch. I'd be interested to see if the Sony and the Pokemon execs walk into the same restaurant in Japan, what will happen?
They
That is,
will for
I think
sure,
that's the most
guaranteed.
curious choice.
Yeah, actually, Gabby, do you remember Shadow the Hedgehog? I'm going on
Barely,
a tangent here. This is when they gave Sonic guns, and it
barely.
was
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
absolute fiasco. It was a disaster. And so,
yeah.
in hindsight, like giving Pokemon guns was not like an obvious move. I actually think it was quite brave of them to do it because the only parallel I can think of is Sonic, and that was a fiasco. But yeah, good for them. They made it work out.
But I guess the difference is like with Shadow, they were kind of going after that same demo. Um, Whereas with Palworld, it like I don't know, maybe there's more distance between the Pokemon fans that have grown up and they're
Yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
more adult. I don't
I
know.
mean, number one, it's not the Pokemon IP, and number two, a lot of the
That's
people who
true.
started playing Pokemon are now basically elder millennials, right?
Yeah, in the
Excuse you, I'm very
early
young.
early 40s. You played Palworld. What do you think of it?
I mean, I enjoyed it. It was better than it had any business to do. Maybe really, it was buggy. It still had bugs, but I did enjoy it. I mean, the whole premise of like you going around and doing things that it feels subservient. It feels like stuff that you should be doing with pets and humans and stuff like that. I think it taps into something that is the same reason why people play GTA, right? Or it's the same reason why people, I play. I've been playing a lot of The Sims with a lot of the mods. And if you think about it, it's quite interesting because the best performing mods are all the ones that actually make the game more realistic, more adult, and the user demographic is aging up. So maybe that's the mods are an interesting thing. They show devs and publishers what the gamers want.
Yeah, I like it. All right, let's move on to the next topic. So there was an interesting data point from Nico Partners. I guess you know Lisa, Gabby, but anyway, yeah, our friends at Nico published a report saying that 62% of China PC players are spending more on games than last year. So nearly two-thirds are spending more on PC than any other platform. That surprised me actually because I thought it'd be mobile. Yeah, and 19% of PC gamers report spending at least 30% more on games versus last year. And Steam is the dominant platform in China, used by almost 80% of players. Um, and most use the international version without using a VPN, which I actually thought was very curious. Live streaming and short form content are driving discovery. So 44% of players in China watching esports live streams and video game live streams. And yeah, mobile mini games are booming as well. So that's a whole other discussion, maybe for another day. But yeah, what are your thoughts on PC gaming growing in China versus we always assumed it was a mobile first market, and it being driven by Steam? Do you want to start, maybe, Gabby?
Yeah, so Asia, the thoughts are really dominated by mobile games, right? Because it's absolutely everywhere, it's ubiquitous, and that's where a lot of the spend originally had been. My thoughts aren't really on China, but I spent some time talking with other game industry execs this week about PC gaming in the Philippines as well. And the interesting thing is that PC gaming spend is also on the rise in Southeast Asia. It Number one, it used to be dominated almost exclusively by PC cafes, and whatever wasn't on PC cafes was probably using pirated software. And so there wasn't a lot of spend in countries like the Philippines. The number one country in Southeast Asia for PC was Thailand, and then like Philippines probably third or fourth, right? And but now there's more spend coming from countries like Philippines as well. Games are starting to market here directly, and I think a big part of that is due to how easily accessible Steam is and how they have local pricing now, right? Where you probably have local pricing, not just in Southeast Asia, but in China as well. Or maybe you're paying $4 or $5 a game. Plus, with Steam being everywhere, there's less incentive to pirate these games with a launcher that has a lot of your favorite games for very low price points. So, yeah, game companies are also starting to directly market more, even in Southeast Asia, where I think a lot of the game companies I talk to still don't believe there's a PC gamer base here. But even us, when we play, for example, a PC game like Parallel, which is like PCG, so not the most mainstream thing, we're actually finding players that are downloading these and playing these from home.
I'm super curious, Gabby. I want to ask, like, do you think part of the increased, I guess, adoption and prevalence of PC gaming, how much of that do you think is also influenced by maybe the fact that, if you compare it to maybe 15 years ago, like a laptop, versus a mobile phone, the cost of that, or a gaming laptop, like the cost sort of, starts to be maybe a little bit more equitable as well. I mean, phones these days are costing like $1,000 upwards as well, right? So
Yeah, definitely. So you can probably get decent-ish PC gaming device for what, $500. Of course, it's not gonna run high graphics of your favorite games. If you double that amount, that's a pretty, really, really decent gaming PC. And so people are starting to afford these more in their homes. There's less of a cafe culture. It still exists, but COVID kind of killed a lot of the gaming cafes, and that combined with, yeah, the ubiquity of Steam, I think means that that market, like the PC market, has just opened up. Like even 20 years ago, Baldur's Gate was such a niche game, right? And even now, Baldur's Gate, I feel like the genre is still pretty niche, but I'm just so surprised. But like almost all of the gamers that I know either know what it is or have tried it, right?
I'm laughing because Melissa, who is producing this, is probably very triggered right now. Just typing to me in the chat, no. Just a massive Baldur's Gate fan. But actually, I think that this China angle for Steam is potentially quite a risky one, because there must be a reason why Steam is not blocked in China. There must be a reason, and if so, like, why is that?
do you not
What
think it's
risk are
just
you at?
maybe oversight? Do you not think that's just maybe
No,
oversight? Like it's
not an
I don't think the
oversight.
Great Firewall of China has oversights.
No,
no,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
they block
more
very
like
obscure niche websites all the time. Like, they wouldn't miss Steam. There must be a
Well,
reason.
I mean, because they've been so focused. I mean, when I say they, as
They're
the
probably
gamer
paying
one.
taxes, right?
There must be
But
something.
yeah, like the CC, like the CCP has always been very focused on mobile gaming. I don't know if that's a mixture of just higher penetration amongst the population, and also the fact that many of the local gaming companies are obviously mobile first dominant, so there's more incentive to pay attention to those. But I mean, if they keep growing like this, and I have a bone to pick with Nico Partners on this particular article, because it took me forever to find out how big exactly is the China PC gamer market. So according to them, it was 14.5 billion in 2023. So that gives a little bit more context to that.
That's huge.
That
That's a lot of
that's
oversight.
massive.
That's a massive.
That's a massive market. I mean, the whole global PC is maybe estimated to be like 42. So 14 is not chump change. So
that's insane. Yeah.
And they have closed studios and games at very short notice. And so if you're building a Steam product for the Chinese market, like, what kind of platform risk or political risk are you?
So you're saying it's pretty much 1/3 of the entire PC market?
Well, if these numbers are true, I mean, let's Nico Partners, please.
I mean, even if it's off, it's probably not off by an order of magnitude, right? It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah. I guess that would be the part that scares me if I'm building for the audience, though, man. Like, just, you have the reliance on one party to not turn you off tomorrow. And unless we know why it's being allowed, like, you don't know what level of security you have.
Well, I guess China does prefer working with larger centralized parties that they can kind of negotiate with directly, rather than a lot of different smaller entities that may pop down or up, like a Tencent or right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. You want to take the next story, Phylicia?
Sure, I'll take the next story, but I guess really quickly to Gabby's point, yeah, I mean, according to the news report, emerging markets PC players are growing at a rate of 4.7%. So that kind of supports what you're seeing on the ground as well.
The master
Anyway, the
race is
next
alive and well.
All right, the next one, we're gonna go ahead to some more Web3 focused news. So Mon Protocol, which is the guys from Mon. I think they did their TGE a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not wrong. They've announced that they've launched a new investment fund. So they're going to be an investor too. It's called Mon Ventures. They're focused on blockchain gaming studios. Interestingly, their main fund investors include 500 Global, and the fund will be led by a team of former execs from Ubisoft, Sony, Activision, Warner Media, Bandai Namco, EA. And they'll be investing in seed and pre-token generation event, basically apps and gaming. So this is an interesting one. I did not see this start happening. I wonder if any of you heard about this or what your
I
thoughts
just
are.
saw it on the news as well, but I smell a Malaysian connection over here.
Why do you smell a Malaysian connection? Tell me more.
Well, Julio, the founder, is in Malaysia, right? And he did Zalora, Southeast Asia. So he actually has a pretty good network of investors. And I think some of the partners or 500 are over in Malaysia as well. Of course, also around Southeast Asia. I think it really makes sense for where Mon Protocol is, where they see a lot of titles and kind of function as distribution for them, which is like not competitive, but sits somewhere similarly with where we do YGG. I mean, we don't have a fund ourselves, but we do invest in tokens of different projects, games, protocols that we support, and it sits in our balance sheet so that we have a kind of healthy and diversified treasury. So I absolutely get the strategy around this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good fit, right? They have all these partnerships, like you say, and also like some members of the team have backgrounds in venture. So this is something they actually thoroughly understand, and they've been building games in Web3 as well, so they know what it takes. So, I think it's funny. I didn't see this coming either, and like we know some of those guys, like they held their nerve very well and didn't leak anything. Um, I think
Diamond lips.
anyone who's investing more money in the space, I think it's a good thing. Like we need more builders and more support, and I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mon has been one of the absolute best turnaround stories in all of Web3. Very famous for
True.
their NFT mint at the height of the market with the original owner, which was such a disaster. And then Julio coming in, turning things around with Chris joining him later after that. And they've really shown that they are long term founders in the space, which is what I like the most. And yeah, I'm rooting for these guys.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to the team. No details yet, I think, on the news release on how big the fund is and everything, but I assume more details will arrive soon.
Cool. Shall we? I guess I'll take on the next one because a game that's very dear to my heart. The wildest ways that Hamster Combat players are boosting their Telegram tapping. So, Decrypt ran an article talk about Hamster Combat. I actually feel like it might have been written by the PR team for Hamster Combat. In all honesty, it doesn't seem. I don't know. Like it seems like an interesting angle for a story, and it was all these different ways that people are engaging with Hamster Combat, and so like they're adapting sewing machines, someone using massage guns to like hit the screen, which sounds very dangerous because those massage guns are pretty powerful. Yeah, all kinds of third-party gadgets, multitasking, while they're like getting a haircut, whatever else, and people setting up software for accessibility. And so I think we had someone on our team that was basically banned from Notcoin for doing that, the accessibility hack. But it seems that people are finding crazy ways to try and farm. I don't know. Like, do you guys have any thoughts on this, or kind of the tap to earn meta more broadly?
I mean, I think if the Hamster Combat team were behind this article, kudos to them. It's hilarious. It gets eyeballs. It gets attention. So, I think from that, objectives are met. I mean, tap to earn on it's not my favorite kind. I know it's the meta right now, but it's really not my favorite type of game. I do I do look forward to seeing more games come out on Telegram and Ton, and I'm hoping that that means also that we kind of have, I don't want to say better quality of games, but just stuff that's a little bit more engaging and evolved.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own take on this, but Gabby, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it's hard to figure out long term where the value is being created in a tap to earn game, because there is a lot of attention happening on it right now. And if that attention can be turned into token launch that has a lot of liquidity, then there is real money being created. But ultimately, that attention has to go into something of value. And when I mean something of value, it means that something that people are willing to pay for, right? So whatever it may be, it could be a game, could be an application. So the question is, will like the hyper casual meta on Telegram mean that people are actually spending money, not hoping to flip or turn your tapping into tokens? And if there's money being spent, then there will be revenue there, or will it become more like hyper casual in that it will be an attention funnel into higher converting apps or protocols, in which sense in which case the ARPU for these should be a lot lower, right? So that's the number one question in my mind at the moment.
I think for me, like, this is just proof of concept. So I think it's fantastic that people are tapping and engaging. I hear a lot of like trad game developers, making comments about being real games or whatever, which is just, it's nonsense to me, because anything that people engage with and spend their time with is and enjoy doing, even if it's just tapping or get some kind of fulfillment from, like, is a good game as far as I'm concerned. But this feels a bit like the early days of the App Store. So I don't know if you remember, but like we had like this app that you paid $2 and it sounded like a whip, and they had like millions of
Wasn't there a
installs.
fart one?
The
Yeah,
fart app
yeah.
was the top trending one. They took it down because Apple were like, no scat humor. And there was like one button racing games that were $2 that were like making millions, and they were essentially just proof that there was an audience there willing to pay for apps. And I feel like Notcoin and Hamster Combat have done this for Telegram gaming, and so I think what, I know people neg on them, but I think they've actually done a tremendous service to the space and shown us that there is a massive underserved audience on Telegram that have nothing to do all day but send each other messages and photos, and there's an audience that's ready for entertainment. So yeah, this is why I guess, I mean, it's a little bit of soft shilling, but like why I'm so passionate about this with Goat Gaming, why we're putting so much time and energy into building a Telegram. But yes,
Can I pitch you a game for Goat Gaming?
yeah, go on, Lynch, go on. What is this?
Can you make kind of like a Bitmoji type of game, but on Telegram?
I think Bitmoji belongs to Snap, but you could do something inspired by.
Oh wait, sorry. What was the other one called? Not Bitmoji. Crap. BitLife.
What
What's
is
it
that? Is
like?
that like Sims Light? Sims Light, isn't it? You
Well,
just
kind
want to
of.
set Sims on fire, don't you? But just on mobile.
No, but like if you, I mean, it kind of it lends itself to that chat interface. That's essentially what BitLife is. It's the UX, the UI UX is essentially that. And instead of role playing as the CEO in
Oh,
finance, you
yeah.
could role play as anything else. Maybe you role play as maybe you role play as somebody from Mon Ventures. Maybe you decide who to invest in.
We should send them a text and be like, "Hey, we're gonna want to make you in game form, and we want players to role play as you." See what they say about that. That's I've been pitched many ideas down the years, and that's not the worst one.
You don't have to say no yet. You can think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, exactly. It's not the worst idea. I once had a man on a train suggest that we make a game about war because that hadn't been done before. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
lives long in the memory.
I
Do you
don't know.
want to
Maybe
talk about?
maybe the folks listening in can comment with their ideas for what we
Yeah,
should build on Telegram game.
someone on the team
I've
suggested
set
a
I've
game
set the I've set the bar.
where you farm grass because it's Go, and I just said no. I think grass is a terrible currency name, but anyway, they know who they are, and I've just shamed them. Sorry, Terry. Anyway, you can go now.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next one. We've got anime hit Attack on Titan that's coming to the Sandbox. It's a popular anime series. It's teaming up with the Sandbox to create a dedicated Attack on Titan land. The franchise itself has over 100 million copies of the manga that's been circulated worldwide. Basically, it follows, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to say Aaron Yeager and his fellow soldiers as they battle giant humanoid creatures known as Titans. So, a dedicated area within the sandbox will bring the post-apocalyptic world to life. It is expected to launch in later in 2024. It's I think a collaboration between Sandbox, Mindo, Cobra Corporation, which secured the rights to create NFTs, develop the area, and we're not really sure what the gameplay is in terms of how the NFTs will be used within the gameplay. But that's the latest news from the Sandbox. Has anyone got into the Sandbox recently?
Well, Gabby, I think is quite good for Pals here, so he's going to give us a very nuanced take. But what's your take on this, Gabby?
Yeah, so Sandbox, like we bought land, I would say 2 years ago. Our creators have dabbled in it from time to time. I think if you go back all the way to Roblox, right? I think it took them actually 7 years before a
Yeah,
proper like platform metaverse play really took off. And I think Sandbox is going on a similar arc where they're actually really good on the business side, on the IP side, in bringing a lot of experiences in. I think a lot of these have been like novel experiences, but we haven't seen a gameplay experience that like that's been kind of lasting as a standalone game, right? And that's the hard part about basically these metaverse experiences is that they're incredibly hard to pull off because you will need a piece of killer content within it, right? And yeah, actually, kudos to the team for bringing so many partners in, and they've shown that they've had staying power, the ability to partner with just great IP, great content, and I know that they're working towards a mobile build. Like I don't know when it's releasing, but I think a mobile build will be pretty big in terms of accessibility for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, my own take is, I guess, similar to yours, but I'm just curious. So there was a period, I want to say, in 2021, 2022, where every like trad brand was buying metaverse real estate in the sand, but like DBS did like a big PR piece around it, and I think Singtel and a few others, and that seems to have like stopped. So
They're all in on AI right now.
yeah, I was gonna say like this is, I guess, the first time I've seen the sandbox in the news since that kind of land grab stopped. And so, what I guess for you, like, so do you see the future for them being more kind of mobile focused? Like, how do you where do you see it going? Because I honestly haven't heard anything from them like maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, well, I know that they haven't stopped building, like Seb hasn't stopped traveling, they haven't stopped partnering. So I think a lot of the, I would say, fruits of like the seeds planted during the bear market, where it's been harder for everyone, are finally coming to fruit. They recently announced a $20 million fundraise at $1 billion valuation as well. So they still do have like investors that are pretty much strong belief in the future of Sandbox. So yeah, we're doing some stuff with them as well in the Philippines, where we're teaching some school kids how to create content in Sandbox as well. So not a big brand activation, but we're actually getting it in the hands of like the creators of tomorrow and teaching them how to use these tools.
That's really cool. It's really, I saw that when I was in Philippines. Just the academies that you guys run and all the educational work. It's lovely.
yeah.
Felicia, what's your take on this?
I mean, I think it's interesting. Like you said, they had a lot of these high profile, I would say corporate kind of collaborations. And I think the fact that that has slowed down, I think it's probably a positive, right? Because brands will come to where platforms, have those kind of big user bases, and that will come later. I think having it now probably is a distraction. This is more, I think, an IP play, which to Gabby's point, if you need that piece of content, that's something to light the spark, bring players in, keep them engaged, keep them creating, then this is probably more in the right direction. So curious to see how this one will perform for sure.
Cool. I think just the last bullet we have today, then it's open topic. So there was a Twitter thread from Annie underscore knows talking about PvP versus PvE games in Web3. I have a very strong opinion on this. The question they were asking was like, is there an advantage to one or another? And there was a bunch of answers underneath. But and what are your guys' takes on PvP versus PvE specifically to Web3?
Phil, want to start?
That's a good question. I mean, if I think when I look at the broader gaming context, right, like there's flavors for everyone. And there's definitely genres and things where PvE works better than PvP just because maybe the audience doesn't like that competitive angle to it. And you can build big businesses on it. I think given where the Web3 gaming audience is right now, I would probably lean more towards the PvP as being something that's just going to be more engaging. It's just even mentally, like sometimes knowing that you're playing against a bot is not. It just takes out all the fun. I wish I was playing against. I don't know who keeps kicking my ass in Mighty Action Heroes, but I wish I was playing against weaker bots. But I think the fact that I keep getting my ass kicked by different people in the game just points to the fact that it's probably all PvP.
Yeah, when you're dealing with what is basically a virtual economy that has value, I do think that that lends itself much better to PvP elements because, like, basically, like, and one of the things happening with reward systems and play to airdrop systems right now is that you can't really expect to scale a system where everyone expects to get something just by participating in the game, right? If I have 1,000 users and they expect to earn $10 each, maybe I can afford to do that. But when you're at 1 million users, I can't afford that unless my game is bringing on significantly more than that in revenue, right? And this is where PvP mechanics actually work really well. In that, of course, you reward winners, you reward higher skill, and you curb the expectation that everyone gets something because I think things that get lost in the nuance of how to scale this, and I actually talked with this a lot with Luke of Pixels, is that how do you scale your player base and how do you scale your reward systems? Because anytime you put value in a game system, it's going to be cyber attacked, it's going to be botted to death. People are going to set up very complicated farms, and of course, this is everywhere. This is in Pixels. This is in uh, any Web3 game. This is definitely in your favorite clicker game. And if you want to scale these things over time, you actually need really good systems for figuring out who to reward. And this is something that we've been working on at YGG for the last couple of years as well, with soulbound token achievements for reputation. And so it's not an easy thing to solve. However, just having PvP is very stressful, and this is why PvE exists. And I think having guild-based, group-based mechanics where you're working together, so there's kind of a sense of, okay, let's do PvE together, or at least let's do cooperative gameplay, and then I can do PvP or guild versus guild. And then it might be that we have our most competitive players that are doing the PvP gameplay, but I have people who are good at crafting or healing or whatever, like doing the less stressful stuff. I think those mechanics could work.
If I was to play devil's avocado, the part that has never really monetized or done very well in free to play has been co-op, right? The only PvE game I can think of in free to play that has done well is Warframe. And other than Warframe, I'm actually drawing a blank. Like there are a bunch of PvP games that have boss mode or whatever, like Brawl Stars and a few others, but at the core they're PvP. And PvP games, I think by the very nature of their competitive elements, compel players to spend and to monetize and retain and compete. I think that's a challenge. I think it's fine to have PvE if it's basically leaderboards and the players are competing for prizes or to top the leaderboard or for whatever. But essentially that's still PvP. It's just you're using
Yep.
an AI as the interface, right? And so my take on this is that PVE is not going to work in Web3 for now because
Yeah.
it's so nascent and revenues are so hard to come by.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine putting what is basically a real world economy around the PVE experience. Like I just don't see that, like how
Yeah.
that could work.
Warframe is an interesting case study. I still to this day don't really get why it did as well as it did because you could argue it's not the greatest game ever made, and so but they tapped into something. Maybe it was a setting in the fantasy, and there's a lesson in there for Web3 devs. The only thing that I think is more out of place than PVE and Web3 is narrative. And so when I see people rely a lot of time and effort into narrative, it's kind of like you're in a space that's driven by speculation and short attention spans, and you're spending dollars on world building. But yeah, that's just a personal pet peeve of mine.
I think the
Yeah.
only narrative right now that is probably relevant to Web3 is like who wins the US presidential election.
That's such a good point. That's the only narrative that really affects what we're doing in
That's
Web3.
the only one that really matters. And yeah, I mean, looks like the Republicans are on a tear,
Yeah.
for better or for worse.
So we've run out of We've covered all the topics that we had. We normally run about 40 minutes, but are there any questions that we should be covering? I want to ask Melissa to paste them in our private chat because she's covering all the different social channels. I'm gonna have a quick peek on what
I'm
we're
gonna
saying.
ask Gabby, what are you playing most these days?
Still parallel, I would say, although I haven't had as much time as I'd like. A lot of just real world stuff getting in the way. But I'm a non Twitchy player these days, and I've always loved TCGs. So yeah, it's still parallel for me.
And
Yeah, I
Simon?
think as we get a bit older, our reflexes slow down, right? And we play less Twitch.
Yeah. Like my ass keeps getting kicked in Mighty Action Heroes, although.
I've been
The same.
grinding. Yes, Phylicia took a screenshot when she came second, right?
Yeah, I was so happy I got second. And then immediately the next game went to shit.
I'm just looking at the Discord chat. What am I playing? Obviously, I'm playing Mighty Action Heroes and grinding the Go airdrops. I'm also checking out a bunch of stuff on Telegram. And then I've also been playing a game called Into the Breach, which is quite an old, turn-based game. Because
Yeah, I feel like I played that around a decade ago.
Yeah, it was a 2015, 2016 game.
Yeah.
I started playing it again, and I was like, oh, I used to find this game really hard, and now I don't. I don't really understand why. And so maybe as you get older, you get better at kind of mapping out the different combinations. But yeah, I used to find it quite punishing, but I've been having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, I'm sure you can get it on Steam for like $5. I'm flying a lot right now, so I have a Steam Deck, and so I've been loading that up, and so I'm finally looking forward to trying Cyberpunk on like a 15-hour flight.
I got an ROG Ally, and my son and I are kind of sharing it, and now he's playing Hades on it.
Oh, Hades 2 or 1?
Both of them. We installed both because you need a really good airplane game that doesn't connect to the internet and all of that. I actually put Disco Elysium on it, and yeah, enjoying that as well.
Nice. Yeah, I tried to play Disco Elysium and I just got angry. There was this one point where it killed my character, despite it being they're supposed to highlight the choices that could be fatal, and they didn't. So I lost like an hour's worth of progress. I got really triggered and never played again. But I should go back to it. Very cool. So yeah, I think
Awesome.
the only thing I have left to just as we wrap up, those of you who are paying attention, we have a game called Waifu Clash going live on Go Gaming tomorrow. Initially, it was called Waifu Smash, but the team vetoed my initial name, so we got Waifu Clash going live. So get involved, see if you can be the top waifu, and yeah, that'll be coming to Telegram in 1 week as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Anything you guys want to mention before we drop off?
I was going to ask Gabby if there's anything that YGG's been working on that you want to share and shout out about.
Well, the one thing I'd want to talk about is that we've got the YG Play Summit happening this November 16th to 23rd. So there's a lot of stuff happening there. You may have been to the Philippines for previous versions of our event, but now what I want to stress is that this is a consumer gaming event, so it's gonna feel more like PAX and Comic Con than your any crypto event that you've been to, right? So it's a B2C event. There's going to be some conference element, but there's going to be huge jazz booths. We're going to have like the big gaming tournaments with six-figure prize pools. We're going to have a lot of cosplay competition, and we might have something to announce on the awards portion soon as well.
Very nice.
All
Yeah.
right.
So
Okay. So
it's going to be a
everybody
very
follow
busy week.
Gabby.
Yeah, I mean, we've been to I think 3 YGG events, and we're always just super impressed. I don't think, and I keep saying this, I travel a lot, and every time I'm speaking to people in Europe and North America, I always stress how disconnected they are from what's happening in Web3 in Southeast Asia.
True.
People ask about if there's adoption or audience. It's like, guys, like, you need to go to one of these YGG events to see for yourselves.
MAH tournament. Now we're talking.
Maybe.
There you go.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else anything you want to show, Phylicia?
No, I mean, happy to be here. Happy to have this new format. Look like we're so professional and everything. So
Yeah.
thanks
Props to
to
the
everybody,
listeners
and
for enabling that.
thanks Gabby for joining us today as well.
Of course.
Always good to see you, and always good to talk to you.
Yes, thanks for joining us today. It's always good to catch up, and I guess I'll see you in a few weeks.